Yay! Get your hands off the equipment.
Don't worry, guys. I pressed record.
Hey, we did it this time. Mr. Moore, thank you so much for coming into the studio today. I got you off guard
Sorry,
again.
while I'm drinking.
Yeah, while you're drinking.
Take
Take two.
Okay.
Run it back. So happy to have you in the studio.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
Redo that. Take 3. Okay.
Mr.
I've
Moore's
never had to
awesome. Take
redo.
4.
Okay,
Okay.
that's a short. That's a short.
That is. I like that.
Awesome. Take 3.
Take 3.
And do the
Take
little
66.
beep. The little beep.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Okay.
All right, now back to the intro. So happy to have you in, Mr. Moore. You have honestly been one of my favorite teachers, like throughout
Well, thanks. I
all
appreciate
teaching. So I really appreciate that. One thing that I'm really interested in is kind of like your philosophy behind how you teach kids. Like you are very engaging, very positive. How do you think like influencing as a teacher kind of affects the mindset of the kids when they come into your classroom?
that. Good question. I'm kind of in sales. Okay, I think the literature is going to do the job, and I think the conversations are going to teach the lessons. So if I can kind of be in sales and market the book and market the advantages of the story itself, then I think the opportunities will present themselves to teach. I had I had an 8th grade teacher when I was in high school back last century, and
Yoda
he
over here.
basically just let the literature do its thing, and I really admired that because there's a lot of stuff you can talk about, and there's a lot of stuff that you don't want to talk about, and I think if the conversation for each class, even though they'll be different, I think having an opportunity to talk about whatever comes to your mind makes literature more real. And then we can all talk about symbols and stuff if we have to, but all the other things, the literature teaches the lesson. So I just kind of let that happen.
Yeah.
And I enjoy doing it. So, and I like kids and being a teacher. So I think it's fun. So if that comes
Exactly.
through, I'm glad to hear that. So
Yeah, that's awesome. Also, I was telling them about this earlier, but I remember my first day in your classroom, you made us each stand up and say our names. And it wasn't like the whole class was standing up. It was like one person stand up at a time.
Yeah.
And
my
then he
gosh.
also had us like write on this paper, just like something random that he asked us a question about. And then he told us like, oh, there was only, I think, one person in my class that like waited a second before they picked up their pencil. Like, how did those little knickknacks that you do in the beginning kind of like gauge your like, I guess, interest in the students?
I actually change those all the time. I haven't done that exact thing probably again, but I like to ask questions that get them out of their comfort zone because I know all teachers are like, here's a card, put your periods on there and what your favorite classes, what the extracurriculars. I just don't want to be that teacher. So I
Yeah.
try to make it a little bit different. Excuse me. And I like to see who writes left-handed. I like to see who thinks about, if you say, what's your favorite color? They go blue. Or if they go, I don't know, blue's good. Then I know, then I can believe them,
Yeah.
like they've put in more thought. And those are the kind of, I can tell within that first day or so, like who I can engage with on deeper level conversations and who's just going to be like, it is a noun because you said it was. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, but it's just a fun way to get kids engaged because if they think, I don't know what Mr. Moore's going to ask me, it's kind of quirky and they pay attention because they're like, I don't know what's going on. And I think it's more fun that way. And then I learn a lot about them that they don't really know they're revealing, which is fun. So.
Oh, yeah.
Not in a bad way, but like you're the creative one because you thought about what you wanted to say, then you said it, or
Yeah.
here, pass out papers, and then this person hands them to the first person, they just pass them down the row, but Faith might have walked down the rows, then I know she's more of a people person than she is do the task person. So just little things like that I like to throw in there, just kind of learn.
Are you kind of like interested in like psychology?
Oh yeah, I was actually a psychology major before I learned how to take
Really didn't know this either.
before I had to
not know
take
this.
statistics, and I was like, oh. I was just scared of math. I didn't have Miss B
gosh.
or any of these awesome teachers that you guys have.
Yes.
So I was a little afraid of my math, and I was like, I don't know if I can do that. So, but I still like psychology. It was fascinating.
So
I did
did that
not
kind of
know
like
that.
influence the way that you teach the classroom now?
Yeah, it does. I do think that if you don't believe that you're going to like a story, then you're not. And if I can convince you that you are ahead of time, then you're going to, even if you don't like it at the end, you'd be like, well, I didn't really care for that, but I see where we were going with it. So that's kind of my goal.
Wait, what was that thing you said? You said like freshman year, like no one could ever win an argument against you or something like that.
It's probably tough, yeah. It's really not your fault, though. Your brains aren't logical till you're like 20, 21,
yeah,
22.
you would tell us that every day, and I'm like, wow,
So like I can
makes me feel great.
I can
Thanks.
I don't feel great about that. I can out logic a freshman, but you know,
Must be
a
a really
win.
I'm not
what is a
debating
win?
with
large
like
accomplishment.
we're not talking about lawyers from Harvard or something. So.
It's the biggest thing on
what
his
is a win?
resume. I can beat any freshman in an argument.
These 14-year-old kids.
But mostly because y'all don't make sense before. Like it's not your fault. Like I'm not really winning. You're just not. They're just not good at it.
You don't make sense. Obviously, you have like influence over your students in the classroom. How do you help your athletes achieve their goals, both on and off the track?
It's a good question. I hope very similar way. I like to put my athletes in a position that they can be successful. So if their goal is to run 3 minutes for an 800, then I'm going to help them set goals and strategies to get there, and then we'll celebrate when they get there. And I hope that's kind of the same way in the classroom.
Yeah.
Like, I hate writing. Okay, then we're going to write a lot. You know. And we're going to have a strategy like, okay, here's a sentence stem. I started doing that a couple years ago. Like, here's an idea. You just fill in the blanks. And then as we go further along, there's more and more blanks. And you got to do more of your side and less of the prepared side. So.
Yeah, that kind of adds into what you're saying about pushing students out of their comfort zone. You got to push your athletes out of their comfort zone.
Right.
If they don't think that they can get a 115, 400, then
Right.
you got to like work with them so that they are comfortable and trying to achieve their goals. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah, and to
important.
kind of
Yeah.
build off of what she's saying is like that relationship that you have to where it's like a positive relationship, which allows you to push them. And
Yeah.
so I would just like to hear kind of your perspective on developing a individual and unique relationship with each like of your athletes and students and how that affects whether or not they're going to hit their goals.
So are you asking like, what's the process? Or you like?
I'm asking like your perspective on keeping a positive like relationship. So if me and Annabelle are like, I'm always like, oh yeah, Annabelle, that's awesome. Like keep working. And then she does something and I'm like, all right, now it's time to push. Like she respects the fact that I'm telling her to push now.
And I think that, I mean, that to answer the question, at practice, for example, in cross country and track, it's really important to encourage when it's difficult, but also call them out when they didn't do what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And then because they know that I'm going to encourage them, but I'm also going to hold them accountable, I feel like they trust me when I said, hey, you could have gone more, you could have gone faster that throw up. And they go, yeah, I know. Then we say, okay, let's figure out how can we do that next time? Like what decision process were you going through? What were you thinking? Oh, I wasn't thinking. Okay, well, there's a place to start. Yeah. Or I was thinking about it, but I didn't feel like I could trust my legs, or something like that. So then we go back to, well, what did we do at practice? Did we do a similar thing at practice? Oh, yeah, we did. The next time we do that same workout, they go, hey, this is going to help me in that race. And hopefully, when we're in class, it's the same way. I don't like grammar. Okay, well, let's not talk about grammar. Let's talk about how to make this sentence better. And then I can say later, hey, guess what? You just fixed the grammar in that sentence. And
Back to that psychology game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back to
Playing it with all of y'all. You better watch out.
But I mean, sports psychology is really important because if you get in a series where you don't think you can achieve your goal because it's for whatever reason, like the training, your body, your mindset, your sleep, your other outside activities are not coordinating with the training, you might have a month or two or possibly longer where you're just not achieving them. But if you consistently put the work in, go through the process, talking with my hands, sorry. If you consistently go through the process and commit to doing everything right, and it will eventually click. And then usually it's a huge breakthrough. And, in the classroom, I always say, let's just do the next right thing. Like this project's too big. I don't know what to do. Okay, well, what's the first thing you can do? What's the first right step you can make? And if you do that over and over again, it just works out. If you're investing, I don't have any money. Okay, well, do you have $1? Yeah, we'll start there. And then eventually you have more. And so you have to break it down in pieces that the students and the athletes can like wrap their brain around. Because you can't go, in 5 years, you're going to run a 5-minute mile. You have to be
Exactly.
like, next week, you can run a 7:10.
Yeah, and too, like something, it's crazy because I literally just read this out of a book like last period, and it was your success comes in your progress, not your goal. Which to me, it's like I'm always like, if I hit my goal, that's how I know if I'm successful. You know what I mean? And I know that the process is important and you need to be consistent and everything like that. But I've never really thought about taking success out of my progress rather than, all right, yeah, this is my goal, but like, this is the progress that I've made. Like,
Yeah.
that's a lot.
Yeah.
And it sometimes when you're goal oriented, you don't see the victories along the way. You know, like just for example, Ava Fields had a good breakthrough in her race the other day, and she had never run that fast even at practice, but she'd been doing times at practice that we knew she could repeat in a meet, and we were just basically said, look, you run your first 400 meters at this pace, and you try to stay in contact with the leaders. You do the next 400 in this pace, and we just said, here's a goal, and then kick at the end. And turns out it worked really well, and she was actually way ahead of where we thought she'd be because she was in a position to be successful. She believed in her training. She's like, I'm in a good place. I can do this, and ended up running a really great time. And I think that she's going to keep making those breakthroughs because of that. But it's a process. We really never said go run a 5:07 mile today. We said let's run a 78-second 400. Let's do that again. Let's see where we are. Let's kick a little bit. See if you're in contact with the leaders. And never really said the time, but it plays out. Successes come with little victories.
Wow, she ran us 5:07.
Yeah, she did. It was really awesome.
Oh,
It was
text
an
her right after
amazing
this.
race. It was like she raced it so
Wow.
well.
Yeah, she's number 2 in Oak Mountain history all time now.
Oh, wow. Yeah, because
crazy.
she was telling me she was trying to break, I think, like 5:19 or something like that.
She did.
Yeah, broke it all by a
And it
lot.
was just like those little goals, like leading up. Like she was like, it's if she was off pace for one lap, she would have to be like, okay, no, now I need to speed up. And it's just like you can also use that like in real life. Like
yeah.
it's not the goal, but it's the little accomplishments throughout the way.
It's
and I just
each
think
lap.
like yes,
Yeah,
and I just think that's
regrouping
like
each lap.
such a good thing, especially like if you make a mistake, like oh I just failed my math test. It's like taking that and what did I do good on the math test?
Right.
What part did I fail? Like I think that's like after I finished my race, you came up to me and was like, okay, what did you do good in that race? And after I talked about what I did good, I broke down what I did bad, and I think that's just such a good mindset to have.
Yeah, you can learn from failure. I mean, I failed a lot, but you can learn from failure because
Like it's some
if you-
secret.
yeah, it's not a secret. But if you can learn from your failure, then it's not really a failure. It's just another opportunity to fix. Like a
Yeah.
lot of times you run a great race, you're trained for it, but then you got boxed in because of what other people did and you didn't notice what they were doing because you're focused on what you were doing. So then you just have to learn a different thing, and now you think about something different next time you race. And it's in the classroom too. You like, I've never, we're analyzing some nonfiction articles about teenage work or something.
Yeah.
It's like, you're never going to read an article and slow down that much and really dig into why that article really didn't make any sense or why that argument was kind of weak or what could be better. But when you do that, you start to see it more easily in other things. So once you've made that connection on the track and you say, well, I'm not going to get boxed in, I'm moving to the right lane, boom, now you know. And then in the class, you're like, well,
Yeah.
I'm really not great at this type of question, so I'm just going to put a circle around that one and I'm going to put
Yeah.
B or whatever or write an answer, but I'm going to come back to it and
It's
be
almost
more
like
successful.
a specific mindset that you're teaching students in the classroom that they can also use in every aspect of their life. But in their head, it's like, oh, you're just teaching me to analyze an article versus, no, I'm really teaching you how you get into a circumstance. You think, this is not necessarily the best thing. How can I work around it? How can I get other evidence and pull in, you know?
Yeah.
So
well, I
it
hope that's
really
what they're
is-
learning from it. I mean, I really
Yeah.
do hope that it's
Well, it took all the way till
Translate.
junior year to click, so it might take a while.
well,
But
if it makes you feel better. I had great teachers in my high school was 7th through 12th grade, and I had a lot of the same teachers over again. And I didn't really figure it out till I was in college, and I was paying for those classes myself. And I was
Yeah.
like, if I fail this class, I got to pay for it.
Yeah.
yeah.
And the lessons, I always tell my dad, I said, it's amazing how smart you got as my dad when I turned 22. Like everything you'd said my whole life was like, oh, he was right about all that. And he was right.
He
He
is
was right
right.
when I was 14. I just didn't hear it correctly, or I
Yeah.
didn't. Maybe it wasn't presented the right way, or whatever. But like, if you can learn, I think being wise is really learning from
Yeah.
every situation, from every person, because everybody's an expert at something. Like I
Oh, yeah.
don't know soccer like you know soccer. you
Yeah.
know? And I definitely don't know. I just don't know like media stuff. I have no idea what's going on right now. So
Yeah.
Like I'm talking into a microphone. What am I doing?
there's 4 cameras. I'm like, which one is watching me?
That's so funny. But that's so true because I kid you not, my parents can tell me so many things. And half the things, 90% of the things, I'm like, oh, like whatever. Well, if you came up into the hall, like came up to me in the hallway and told me the exact same thing, it would actually stick with me. And I would actually be thinking about that for the
Yeah.
next 2 weeks. But it's just so weird how it's like, in like this phase of life, it's almost like your outside mentors and authorities have more like say so in your life than your actual parents do, even though it should be reversed.
It should be, but that's just, I think that's part of the nature of being a teenager. You're trying to find your own way. So you go, I'm going to not do what they said, but I'm going to listen to my trusted mentor who said literally the same thing. But you did it your own way, and it's just part of that growing process where you have to select good mentors and all that. But that's one reason I find my role as a teacher is really important. Like the things you say those first couple days, the first practice that you have together, that sets the tone for how people are going to react with you the whole time. But I think that's a great mark of wisdom that you're starting to see. Hey, I can learn something from this person, and then recognizing as a youngster that, hey, my parents are probably saying the same thing. I should probably listen to them too. But I didn't. My dad, we've had this conversation, laughed about it, because he's in his 70s, and we're like, yeah, I told you that. Like, yeah, I know. We were on that camping trip, and I was like, whatever, and then it totally happened the same thing. It is just fun how life does that. So
Yeah.
But I've actually, as a side note, I've actually had parents will text me and be like, hey, do you mind mentioning such and such about math class with so and so? I'm like, of course,
gosh.
because I
Yeah.
know that role I have. So I'll be like, just casually, like, hey, how's class going? I'm a little stressed about math. Well, tell me about that, and we'll talk through it a little bit.
Oh,
and
that's
then,
nice.
so it's just I have the opportunities. One reason I love Source 60 and I love coaching is because I get to see, I get them always teaching them as a freshman, and then they leave. But because I'm still in the hallway, they say hey to me in the hallway, we talk, or they come visit in SOAR, or on the track or on the cross country course. I see them develop and grow and mature for 4 years, and I can go, remember when you were a freshman? Like, now look where you are now. It's just so, it's great to see that growth, and I get to be a part of that. So I love SOAR because of that. I think it's really helpful.
And I
Yeah.
just think like kids are different when they're in the classroom and when they're on like doing their sport, or when they're just like having a conversation with you in the hallway. Like they're different from when they're in their classroom. They could have a completely different personality. So I think like knowing both of their personalities is like going to be beneficial for your relationship towards them.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the classroom persona for one student and their outside practice persona is totally different. So seeing both aspects, I get to see that whole picture. It's definitely like that. Or you get the whole family. You see like brother, sister, 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 and you get the whole family. You see, like, you learn so much about them as a family because you've seen them for years and years and years. So.
Yeah. And then like,
Or if you coach their mom and now you coach their son.
that's
I'm
creepy.
Like, you're a little bit old now. Should probably retire one day.
Oh my gosh.
But it happens. It happens.
And then like your classroom is basically like High School Musical.
Oh my
Every time I
gosh,
walk
yes.
into it.
Wait, what?
You are playing guitar or music
everywhere.
or
Like,
something.
just-
yes.
That's so fun.
Why? Just like, what is your basically obsession with music? Like, why do you like it so much?
I just
So direct. Why do you like music?
Why do you like music so much?
that's a good question.
He knew what I was asking.
I mean, it's kind of, I guess, like, how far back do you want me to go in this?
Very far back.
As
Bands
early
in
as
high
possible.
Okay, so
school.
my dad liked classical music and like operas and stuff.
Okay.
My mom liked 1950s rock music, and I thought that was like, oh, this is cool. I like Ricky Nelson and
Yeah.
Country Roads and John Denver, and I thought this is great.
Yeah.
Cher or whatever. And then I was about 7 or 8, and I had friends in the neighborhood, and he had an older brother who was 16, and we were like 8, and his older brother's like, what do you like music you like? I was like, I like Ricky Nelson. He's like, who? I was like, he's a 50s singer. He's like, so he said, come in here. So he had this wall of 8 tracks. And
Yeah.
huge speakers, and he played some AC/DC song, and I was just like, oh, that's what music is. That's why I like rock and roll, because of that. But because of my dad's influence with his classical, we always listen to the car. You just look out the window and you listen to whatever dad wants to listen to. You don't have an iPod, AirPod back in the day, so you just like stare out the window. But I would learn to appreciate classical, and sometimes he would sing along with it in goofy ways and stuff. And so I learned to appreciate it. But what I love about music, to kind of speed up in time here, is that, because I was in band in high school and marching band and things, and the way that one note changes, and it changes your whole mood, your whole emotion. Like, there's just a song that you'll know, and all of a sudden it comes on, you're like, you're not in a bad mood now. You just can't be in a bad mood.
Yeah.
Or there's, you're in a kind of trafficy, kind of grungy mood. And
Yeah.
you hear something, you're like, that's how I feel right now.
Throw on
It
some
just-
Katy Perry. Like, I'm good. You can
It
go.
just makes you, like Sunday Best by Surfaces. That song is just like, I'm never in a bad mood when I hear that song.
Yeah.
Like, so I love the
dad
way that
loves that
music can control in your emotions, and it just takes you to a different place. And I mean, literature does the same thing. Like in your mind's eye, you see the images, but music is just connected more with the heart. And I think that's why I like it, because I don't even have to play anything on my guitar. I can just like literally hit a note or two or six for 5 minutes, and my wife's like, "Stop playing the same thing."
Well, you
But for
can't play
me-
anything right now because of your
'cause
thumb.
my
So
thumb. But I just love the fact that music, it's universal. Like I can play a song that's catchy in Nicaragua while I'm on a mission trip, and they clap along and get the music, even though I have no idea what the words are. And I'm the same way with with the music they're sharing with me, and that's true all across time. And you can have a Native American flute, and you hear it, you're just like, oh, that's so cool. You can just connect with it. So it just kind of we can not speak the same language, and I can play guitar, and you can play guitar, and we'll find something that we can get along with. So
Yeah.
that's why I like music. But to me, it just shaped the way that I thought about emotions in the world through music and my whole life. So I like all kinds of music. My oldest daughter was jazz band here at Oak Mountain, and I just love jazz because she kind of opened my world to that, and always liked classical and rock and roll and just everything. And now my younger daughter's a big Swiftie and pop music, and so just learning all about all the different stuff. So I just like music. The way it makes you feel.
did you have a band in high school?
I mean, that's technically classified. But
Oh my god.
Classified information.
No, I had a couple of, I would use air quotes, bands when I was at school.
Yeah.
Basically just played three chords and screamed a lot. But one of them was called Sokotoa, which is from math. Sokotoa, math, sine, cosine, tangent. thing.
Yeah.
But that's a shout out to my math teacher. That's probably about the only thing I learned that year. But we were terrible.
That's the one
We
thing
tried to
you
play.
didn't fail.
We played. Yeah, for real. Like the music in my head was, I didn't have the skills to play what I heard in my head, so I would just play like it was like Social Distortion or the Ramones or like early Green Day, just three chords and scream. It was great. We had fun with it.
I mean, that's all that matters, right?
Yeah, we had a good time.
You gotta have
That's
a
all
good
that
time.
matters.
One of the guys that played with me though, he was like truly a gifted musician, and he went on to play in several bands up in Nashville. Like when he was in his teens, he
Oh
was
my
just
gosh.
extraordinarily
Like guitarist?
Yeah, he was a
or-
guitarist. He was extraordinarily talented, and you just listen to it and play it like instantly. But he had the
wow.
skills to do that too
Yeah.
because he practiced. I didn't do that for a while, but so it was just fun playing with people that knew how to do music and got it.
Yeah. It's just like, and then, okay.
But
I don't know how to word
strangely,
this.
side note, I don't really
Okay.
like musicals.
What?
Wait, hold on.
Okay.
Hot take. Love music, no musicals. Okay.
Okay.
I can see that. Because me and my dad are kind of the same way, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
It's just a different type of music, if that makes
It's more
sense.
talking. Like for
Yeah.
musicals.
What's
it's-
your take on it?
Okay,
I'm
I
curious.
love music.
Yes.
Like if I heard the songs from Wicked, great, love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't like it when the music is taking place of character development and sometimes acting.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Now, if I see it live, of course, the music's so much more engaging live and you get into it. But I don't really want to go buy a ticket to see a movie that's a musical.
Yeah. Like,
Even though I love music, which is, I know it doesn't make any sense, but because I also love stories, I like the story to do its own thing. I like the music to do its own thing. But sometimes you put them together, it's really good. I will say Wicked I saw the movie. It was really well done. But
Yeah.
I don't traditionally like
yeah.
musicals. Like Into the Woods, what is that?
Oh my gosh. Not you. Not
Who even know? I don't even know.
my
I don't know. Sorry to all the
What about The Sound of Music?
Sound of Music. That's a classic from my
I
childhood, though.
love that movie.
That's a
Yeah,
good
I
movie.
love that
That
movie.
is such
My
a good
dad
movie.
hates it. He will not let us
But
play
I don't
it
understand.
at all.
But again, here's my storytelling part. The part when they're like, the goat part, and there's like being the puppet show in the middle of that song, you know? I don't get it. Like, what is that for? I mean,
It's
I don't understand why that's in the movie at all, except to show off, Julie Andrews' voice, which is amazing. But like, why do they gotta have a puppet show and sing like a goat? No, it doesn't make any sense at all in that movie. But I do like that movie, But
Yeah.
again, it's childhood, and then Mary Poppins,
Ah,
part of my
Yeah.
childhood. But that's
Mary Poppins
that's
is
just
good.
I don't know. Before you could stream whatever you wanted, whenever those movies came on TV, you just watched them, and they were
Yeah.
just classic. They came on-
Oh, I have a question for our ancient old timer. I'm just
oh my
kidding.
gosh. Oh dang.
Okay, how old is old timer? Are we thinking 70?
What was school like without technology? So you were in school
that is
a good
without
question.
technology,
Ooh.
and now you're
is a
in it
really good
with
question. Okay.
technology.
That's a
How
great
is it?
question.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys.
And I don't know how we're doing on time, but technology was kind of when calculators became like good. Our math teachers like lost their minds. You can't use a calculator. Cannot use a calculator.
Really?
I mean, it was just like this thing, and then it became like, can you do the math with a calculator? So it was the teachers adapted, and I think AI is going to be the next frontier where teachers are going to have to adapt because it does make things crazy easy to do. Things that would be ordinarily boring or tedious, working through like, how do you want to say this is tedious sometimes. And I get that. And you could just ask Google or chat or whatever. And it's going to be a challenge for the next couple of years because I feel like teenagers are ahead of where teachers and education are. Like you guys will figure out the cool stuff to do before we even hear it's existing. And then we have to figure out how to adapt with it. And there are ways that we can use technology to our advantage. I think, I don't like to show movies in class because I think it just burns a lot of time.
Yeah.
But I like to use clips and shorts because that's the attention span of this generation. Plus, it's so easy to find almost anything that I want to talk about on YouTube or some of the other media platforms. But as far as like in class, like I remember teachers writing on the board chalk. Like, and dry erase boards are like, what? You got a dry erase board? You got multiple colors. This is amazing. There's no dust. It's amazing, But then my first class in college about educational technology, we had to learn how to use an overhead and a slide projector. Never in my life have I used one of those in the classroom.
Yeah.
But technology goes so fast. I really don't know how we can keep up with it. But I do feel like not having the distractions of social media by putting our phones in little phone hotels or whatever they call them, has been really helpful because it focuses our attention back on the conversations.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we can't turn away from technology in the classroom. But I don't know that we have figured out really how to do
that.
it well.
Yeah.
Because by the time you get your head around it, it's already changed again.
Exactly.
I know Mr. Dubose does a lot of teaching with his iPad on the board. He can walk around and help the students while he's teaching and still explaining, and then make corrections and that's really awesome that you can do that. But some classes like English, I can't really
Do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, so or I don't need to. I can just put the paragraph on the board, and we can analyze it and talk about each piece, and I don't have to like have an interactive whiteboard about it. But there's a lot of technology out there that could be awesome in the classroom if we could just figure out how to use it.
And figure out how to use it in the most productive way.
Yeah.
Right.
Because too, I feel like, especially with our technology now, like giving us an essay or giving us some like a math problem, and then we go and we cheat, basically.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We come
Was it-
back
what is
and
it,
it's
photo
like,
math or something?
Yeah, photo
Yeah.
math.
Yeah.
But it's like it's inhibiting our growth.
Right.
So it's
That's a
finding those
great way to
lines.
phrase that.
Yeah.
Inhibiting your growth is a great way because yes, you have the right answer. Yes, you got an A on your homework, but
Yeah.
did you learn anything?
But
Exactly.
did you learn
That's the
anything?
problem.
That's like
Yeah.
And like, it's almost, it goes further than just learning that thing. It's also like a mentality of like, all right, when I get to a hard thing in life that ChatGPT can't fix or photomath can't scan real quick, how am I going to deal with that?
Right, and I think that you're exactly right. And that's the challenge as a student because that technology is so easily accessible, but at the same time that you have to have that mindset of like, I'm not going to be able to ask ChatGPT to do my job for my boss. I'm going to have to actually do my job, and the mindset of like when it gets hard, I'm just going to find the shortcut. And we see that all the time. Like we had talked before that we started about powerlifting. Like people in powerlifting always trying to find the shortcut to get big, and like there isn't a shortcut. You just have to lift.
yeah.
And sometimes in math, we're like, I don't want to do 40 questions, Miss B, but if you do those 40 questions, then you'll see the pattern over and over again, and it becomes so much easier.
Exactly.
And you can do it quicker later. And she knows that, and she understands math, so she's trying to show you that. But at the same time, kids in photo math, they get their homework grades right, and then they get a D or a C on the test, and that's you were
Can
talking
attest to
about.
that over the past 2 weeks.
You can attest to using photo math over the past 2 weeks. Is that what you just said?
Both sides of that story. Let's just say
Just called yourself
bombed
out.
something last week and absolutely made it 100 this
It's okay.
week.
I think I
so-
bombed my
Lucky
math
man.
test last
Exactly.
period. So like
Math is one of those
Yeah.
things, though. Like you can literally get an F, and then 2 days later you go, oh, and now you get an A
Yes.
because
Yeah.
now you understand it.
Yes, and you're like, okay, why was
Yeah.
this not clicking
Yeah.
before?
And when it clicks, you're like, oh, I get it now. It's not a thing anymore. Like
Yeah.
when, back to music. When I started understanding how different scales and chords and layers went together, it was like, oh, music is so much more interesting now. Whereas before I liked it, but then I got it. And I wish that I could see, I mean, I haven't put in the work obviously, but I wish I could see math like that because
Yeah.
it really is, there's
Yeah.
a right answer. And that's kind of comforting coming from a world where there's an answer.
Oh,
You can just, if you can explain it,
Yes
it's an
or
answer.
no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is kind of cool, but it would be nice to have answers that were correct all the
Yeah.
time.
It's almost like soothing to your brain in a weird way. Like when you figure out how to do something and then you're just like writing it down, especially with a pencil. Like I have to manually do something.
Yeah.
I can't auto read a book either. Can you do that?
No.
I read really slowly, and I mean, y'all might know I'm kind of ADD.
Kind of.
Maybe.
But if I'm reading a book and I like the way the author said that sentence, I'll read that sentence like 30 times. Like,
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yes.
I love the way they said that. I'm like, that is so cool. Like in Fahrenheit 451, there's that sentence like, her dress was white and it whispered. And I just think that's the coolest way to describe her walking around on this, the girl in the story. Like her dress was white and it whispered. I must have read that 1,000 times. It's what, 6 words? I
Yeah.
just thought it was so cool. And
Yeah.
so when I read, I really have to dig in. And if I'm listening to an audiobook, I just can't do that as much.
Me neither.
But I don't know what that was related to, but
Yeah. No, because when I read, it's like I have to see it, if that makes sense. Like I can read, not know that I've like flipped 10 pages,
Right.
but I have the whole story in my head.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So that's the way I do it. It's so vividly there, especially like with interviewing and hearing people like story tell. Like when you're like, oh, powerlifting, I'm like automatically envisioning like a stage and like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it's so
Right.
visual for me.
And part of I don't know if this is true for everybody, but part of my ADD is I hyper focus when I get focused. So if I'm reading a book, my house could be on fire. Like I would not even know it. Like I'm so locked in. Like my wife will have to tap me like what?
Yeah.
Or somebody says, "Did you hear me?" I'm like, no, I was
No.
reading. I didn't hear anything.
Yeah,
What did you
Yeah.
say? Can you repeat all that? Because I'm so locked in.
Yeah.
And books have that power to just, I'm not even in this world anymore. I'm somewhere else. And that's what I love about reading and just digging in.
Yeah. So from talking to track to talking to cross country to your classified band in high school and you being able to
Classified band.
and you being able to beat every freshman in a debate. This was a great interview and thank you so much for coming
Oh,
in
of
today.
course. I appreciate
Yes.
y'all asking me to come and hanging out and being silly with me. It's great.
Of course.
Quick
Thank
question
you.
before you
Yes.
leave, though. What would be your biggest advice towards those in a position of power or influence?
I would say to prayerfully consider the weight that you have with the words that you say, because the way that you say the
Okay.
things is just as important as the relationship that you're either building up or destroying by what you say. So that would be my advice.
Well, way to end on a banger.
Okay, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Just make that free throw over and over and over again. Thank you so much
You're
for
welcome.
coming
You're
in.
welcome.
It was so much fun.
Okay.
We're done.
Boom.
You rocked. You killed it.
That was amazing.
We ate that up.